constantly and consistently providing immense value to others. Understanding that doing so is not only a more pleasant way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable. Nobody's going to buy from you because you need the money. No one's going to buy from you because you have a mortgage to pay. People are going to buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so.
Hey there, Lead the Team Nation. Welcome back to another great episode. Today, I have for you Mr. Bob Burg, who for more than 30 years has been successfully showing entrepreneurs, leaders, and sales professionals how to build relationships, communicate their value, and accelerate their business growth. Although for years, he's been known for his sales classic, Endless Referrals. It's his business parable, The Go-Giver, co-authored with John David Mann, that's created a worldwide movement. And by the way, I've been in that movement myself, and I'll tell you more about that. While part of a 4-book series, The Go-Giver itself has sold well over 1 million copies and been translated into 30 languages. It was rated number 10 on Inc. magazine's list of the most motivational books ever written, and it was on HubSpot's 20 most highly rated sales books of all time. Bob is also founder of the Go-Giver Success Alliance, an online mentorship community for successful entrepreneurs, leaders, and sales professionals, as he publishes the very popular Daily Impact email, which you can find a link to in the show notes. And he's an advocate also and supporter and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directionally proportional to how many people they serve. He's also an unapologetic animal fanatic and serves as part of a South Florida rescue, foster, and adoption organization. Mr. Bob Burg, welcome to Lead the Team.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben. What an honor to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man. So for the audience here, y'all, random chain of events. I listened to The Go-Giver as an audiobook years ago, and it has never left my memory. And I can say there are very few books that have had an impact on me like that one, especially listening. And when you listen to an audiobook, it's so easy to forget it because you're like distracted, you're driving, there are other things going on, but there's something magical in the way this is a parable. And we're going to explore that with Bob. So you're going to get this sort of like a Pixar movie, right? There's going to be like the awesome topics of what's in there, why he did the book this way, the power of parable and storytelling. Like I see a lot of ways that we can go with this, but let's start this off by asking you a question that most people will not have the answer to, which is, what's it like selling 1 million copies of a book?
Well, the short answer is it feels great.
It feels great. Okay. Yes.
The second answer, though, is real gratitude for, all the moving parts that had to come together for this to happen. First, I had the pleasure and honor of co-authoring this with John David Mann, who's an absolutely brilliant writer and storyteller. And without John, this wouldn't have been anything near close to what it was. We also had a lot of people behind the scenes who worked with us. We had a wonderful publishing house and people who, and this is probably the most important part, the people who got the book and then spread the word about it. So nothing like this happens alone. It just doesn't. Filled with gratitude that this has been able to touch a lot of lives, because that's really, what in the end, that's what it's about.
Yeah. 1 million lives of people that got the book, but then they shared the principles with their teams. And so It extends obviously beyond 1 million even. It's incredible. So it's probably one of the easiest business books to listen to that I've ever listened to or read, because it's a dang parable. And why a parable? Because you had a lot of success with Endless Referrals, not 1 million copies, but at least I don't think 1 million copies, like The Go-Giver. But then you come out and you're like, well, that did well, but what can we do with a parable book? I mean, what's that about?
Well, yeah, after Endless Referrals came out, and that was back in the 90s, and it was a how-to book. It was a traditional book, and the idea of it was to share with entrepreneurs and salespeople who they knew they had a great product or service. They were proud of what they did. They knew it brought a lot of value to those they served, but they didn't necessarily have the confidence to go out there and create the relationships that would cause people to want to do business with them directly or refer them to others. So this was the system of how people could confidently go out there and do that. The premise of that book was that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. So again, it was a successful book.
Yep. Yep.
But as a how-to book, you've got a somewhat of a limited audience, and that less people are going to read a how-to than they're going to read a story. And I always thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take the basic premise and create a parable from it? Because, and as you alluded to, a parable is a story. And by its very nature, a story connects with people on a much deeper level, a much more heart-to-heart level. And I personally had always, since I'd been in sales, loved reading parables and stories, whether it was Og Mandino's Greatest Salesman in the World or Klassen's Richest Man in Babylon. Then you had in the late 70s, early 80s, you had Doctors Johnson, Get Blanchard and Johnson with the 1 Minute series. Today you have people like Chris Widener, you have Andrea Waltz, Richard Fenton, you've got John Gordon. So many people write these wonderful magical parables, just wonderful. And again, it's that connection. And because of that, I think more people are going to read it, right? And it's going to be more of a book you're going to recommend to do others because it's a short story and so forth. So that's really why. But by the same token, I know I'm not a fiction writer or parable writer. And so I really, while I had a basic idea of what I wanted to do with it, it wasn't until John David Mann came into the picture that I knew this was something that could really be a winner. And I asked John, he was the only one that I wanted to do this with. Because he has that heart, he has that he is a go-giver. He's the embodiment of a go-giver. And fortunately, he said yes. So we got that done. But that was really the reason for the parable, because as you said so eloquently, it's a story.
Yeah, I really recommend it from that standpoint, because ideas are great and there are a lot of beautiful ideas out there. But if you don't remember them, you can't apply them. It doesn't really get that far. Obviously, when you hear the parable, you can put yourself in the shoes of a lot of the characters, one specifically, but there are others that resonate. And you apply, and this principle is applied in so many really interesting ways. So for the listeners that haven't had a chance to read the book, what's at the heart of it, and what are the 5 laws?
Yeah, so at the heart of it is a very simple premise, and that is that shifting your focus, and I think this is really where it all begins, Ben, shifting your focus from getting to giving. Now, when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more pleasant way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. And not for any kind of way out there, woo-woo, magical, mystical type of reasons, not at all. It makes very logical, rational sense. When you're that person who can take your focus off of yourself and place it on serving others, discovering what they need, what they want, what they desire, helping them solve their problems and challenges, helping to move them closer to happiness, well, people feel good about you. They feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you. They want to tell the world about you, or what we call becoming your personal walking ambassador. So that's the basic premise. Around that, as you mentioned, John and I built 5 laws. None of these are new. Right? We may have named them, but I mean, these have been the laws and principles.
They're timeless. They're principles.
They're timeless that people have been successful people have tapped into, not always knowingly tapped into. Sometimes it was just very intuitive, right? But that they tapped into forever. And those laws are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity.
Yeah. Beautiful. A lot of ways to go with that, but you really codified it in a way that I think people can remember.
Thank you.
And so a couple of things about this. It is powerful when you add a value, and there can be, it reminds me of that book Influence, which I read later as a nonfiction by Robert Cialdini.
Oh, it's a classic.
The principle of reciprocity. How does that apply to this, to your model, or reinforce it, I guess?
Yeah, so it's interesting because we never mention the law of reciprocity because ours is receptivity, but reciprocity is a big part of it,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
just due to human nature. So, what is reciprocity? And this is something that Dr. Cialdini, in his classic Influence, a book, by the way, and he actually updated it back in, I think, 2018 or 19. I have it it's right in back of me somewhere in that book, on that bookshelf, but and he actually added some to it. It's just beautiful. But when he talks about reciprocity, it's that very natural human instinct. So it's part of our human nature, right? To want to give to someone who has given to us. This is very natural. Now, because of it, a manipulator could use that to their advantage to hurt another person. Okay. So we always want to know it's the principle that counts, not necessarily the way it's used. We can use, a principle is just something. It's like gravity. Gravity is a principle. It's a universal law. It's neither good nor bad. It just simply is. Gravity results in good when it keeps us from, floating aimlessly up into space. It results in something bad when we fall off a 7-story building, right? So it's the same with reciprocity.
Okay. Yeah.
But
I haven't put it quite that way. Heard it quite that way. That makes sense. Gravity, friend or
yeah,
foe, you decide.
yeah, friend or foe, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Depends.
Yeah.
So with the go giver, basically, in a sense, what you're doing is when your focus is on giving to others, again, finding ways to create value for others, understanding that value is relative. It's the relative worth or desirability of a thing to the end user or beholder, which means just because we think something would be of value to someone doesn't mean they would. And that's why it's always on the communicator or the giver of value to make sure that that which we are giving to another is of value to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Or otherwise, you're just doing work. You're working for low benefit to them.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at best, there's nothing at all. At worst, you're doing something that someone doesn't like, right? So
Yeah.
so we always, and that's where discovery comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're asking questions and listening, doing our research so that we know. So, but when we do this and we do consistently give value to others in a way they see as being of value, when we're able to touch the lives of many people and utilize the other laws, the law of reciprocity certainly does kick in. Now, we don't want people to feel obligated to give to us or to do. No, we want them to want to because they see us as being of value to them.
Yeah. And that becomes influence from there. That's where it's right. Because you're giving value. So applying this to the corporate setting, and it's a very entrepreneurial principle. The book really presents it that way. Like, hey, you're trying to build your business. You're trying to grow your sales. Instead of just thinking me, think about what you can do to add value for others. But
that's how you grow your sales.
That's how you grow.
That's the only way you can, because and I say this to audiences, Ben, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet, right? Nobody's going to buy from you because you need the money. No one's going to buy from you because you have a mortgage to pay. People are going to buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so.
It's so primal, right? It's just such a foundational thing. And
that's why.
And so you said you speak to audiences, you speak to crowds. What do you do to this? Like, how are you speaking to the salespeople who are like, look, I need my quota. I got to get this done. Bob doesn't understand, what it's like for me. To like every month I'm barely getting by. And here he is telling me to give stuff away for free.
No, that's not what Bob's saying.
What is Bob saying?
No, being a go-giver has nothing to do with giving away things for free.
All right.
Now, if that's part of a strategy, well, of course, when we create content, I mean, that's giving things away for free.
Yeah.
But while you're doing that, you're getting people to get to know you, like you, trust you, through your information. They see that you're of value. You might give something for free. We give, when people come to the website, we give a couple chapters of the book away for free.
Yeah.
But that's because we understand that a large percentage of them, once they read that, they're going to want the whole book and they're going to pay for. So it's not a mess. So giving away things for free might be part of a strategy, and a good strategy depending upon the situation. But that's not what being a go-giver is about. Not at all. It's about giving more in value than you take in payment. and while making a profit. And let me explain this. Let me give an example, if I may.
Yes. Yeah. Great.
So let's say you hire an accountant to do your taxes. And she charges you, Ben, and we're just going to name a round figure to make it easy. She charges you $1,000 to do your taxes. That's her price or her fee.
Yes.
But what value does she give to you that makes it worthwhile for you? Well, first, through her years of study, her desire to get to know you and your business, what you're looking to accomplish, what your issues are. She's able to save you $5,000 in taxes. She saves you countless hours of time. She provides you and your family with the security and the peace of mind of knowing it was done correctly. So she gave you well over $5,000 in value in exchange for $1,000 fee or price. She gave you more in value than she took in payment, which is law number one: give more in value than you take in payment. So you feel great about it. She also made a very healthy profit. Why? Because it was worth it to her to exchange her time, her money, not her money. Let me take that back. Her time, her energy is what I meant to say, her knowledge, her insights for that $1,000 fee. So what happens is you've got two winners, the buyer and the seller. And in any free market-based exchange, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to buy from anyone else. People do so on their own volition. In any free market-based exchange, there should always be two winners, the buyer and the seller. Both come away better off afterwards than they were before. Okay.
Yeah.
So she didn't give herself away for free. She gave more in value than she took in payment. So let's go back to the quota thing that you were asking about. So the corporate salesperson says, Bob doesn't understand. I have a quota to meet. If I don't do this first, I'm not going to be able to eat. But secondly, I'm going to lose my job. By all means, you have a quota. That's we have to make money, or else we're not going to be in business. No, all I'm saying is, and if you have a quota that you're working from, and that's part of the corporate structure, you have a quota. There's nothing wrong with that, with any of that. What's wrong is, or what's false is thinking that other person's going to buy from you because you want to meet your quota. You see the difference?
Yeah, you're focused on what the value is to you of their purchase versus how you can exceed it. And it sounds like there's a real tipping point too on, hey, you're exchanging $1 for $1 of, you're like more of a transaction versus a value piece, which is, you're maybe paying them 100, but they're getting $5,000, $10,000 of value back. How much time and what challenge is it? Because I can see people buying into this idea. I buy into this idea too. But a lot of times it's communicating the value of what you're doing because they may not understand the value. Like if you're an accountant and you say you're saving them $5,000, that's pretty straightforward to communicate. But all the other things, making sure, like, how critical is that piece?
It's totally critical because it's a law of economics that people will exchange their money only for that which they feel is of equal or greater value than the money they're exchanging it for. So if the price you're asking or the fee you're asking is here, okay, and the value they perceive, because value is all perception, right? Value is here, they're not going to buy. But if they believe the value they're going to receive is here and the price is here, they're going to buy. It's up to you, the sales professional, to be able to communicate that. But here's the thing. You don't communicate it by what you say. You communicate it by what you ask, because by what you ask, you're going to hear the information. This is why the discovery is still the most important part of the sales process. You determine what they need, what they want, what they desire, but you take it a step further too, because the chances are, that market that you're, that niche, whatever it happens to be that you're working, and how you serve it best. You're able to probably see weaknesses that they have that they don't even know they have, that you can communicate how you can help them strengthen those, okay? Or they may have opportunities in front of them that they don't even recognize that they have because they're too close to the situation. But you, as the outside expert, are able to share with them that opportunity they have and how you can help them to leverage it through your products, services, and advice and wisdom. So when you do that, when you ask the right questions, they're going to tell you what they need.
Don't
And
miss the discovery phase, y'all. Discovery
that's
phase is
important.
a pre-conversation, right? Before you start in the sales conversation, you understand them.
Well, yeah, that's just so vitally important. And it's really only after you know that you understand their needs, wants, desires, and the various aspects that you're in the position to connect the benefits of your product or service with those needs, wants, and desires.
Speaking to CEOs right now who are thinking, how can I apply this principle inside my organization to the employees? How have you
Right.
seen it translate?
Well, as leaders, and we've had a lot of leaders utilize this book, and it's because it's the same
Mhm.
basic principle, right? Nobody's going to follow you because you would like them to, right? No, not right. Nobody's going to follow you for their reasons. They're going to follow you for their reasons. So the best leaders, first of all, they understand that they lead best not through push, but through
Mm.
pull. When you look at influence, what is influence? By definition, a very basic definition, it's the ability to move people or persons, move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within a specific goal. Now, that's its definition, but that's not the essence of leadership or influence. The
Mm.
essence of influence is pull,
Mm.
pull as opposed to push, which you could say
Yeah.
is the difference between leading through compliance, which is push, and it's very ineffective, or through earning commitment,
Mm.
right? And I
Okay.
love what a great friend of mine, Don DiScumaci, who's a leadership speaker, author to companies all over the world. She says, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to influence, compliance will never take you where commitment can go.
Mm.
And so I think the best leaders, what they do is they ask themselves, how does what I want this other person to do, how does it align with their needs, their wants, their desires, with their goals, with their values? How does what I'm asking this person to do help them solve a certain challenge? How does it lead them closer to happiness and fulfillment? And when we
So
ask
good.
ourselves these questions as leaders, we ask ourselves these questions thoughtfully, intelligently, um, genuinely, authentically, not
Yeah.
as a way to manipulate another person into doing our will, but as a way of building everyone in the process. Now we've really come a lot closer to earning that
Mm.
commitment.
So good. So good. And what a recap of this strategy and how you can use it inside your organization, outside of your organization. I want to wrap this up with actually going back to your endless referrals idea and translating that through this. What are some of your favorite strategies that result in great referrals
Yeah. Well, the best
or
thing you
endless referrals, which is even better than
Almost
some
referrals,
referrals?
right? Well, the best thing you can do is refer others. Always be that connector, that person who
Hmm.
looks for ways to set people up with one another where they can both benefit, you know. But the first thing you really do is in connecting with another person when you meet them for the first time is you focus on them. One of the things when I first started in sales, Ben, 40 years ago, and I was on the telephone a lot, one of the things I noticed very quickly is that nobody ever hung up the phone on me while they were talking. It was really an amazing thing, right? If
Nice.
I'm talking about myself, how great I am, my product service, how old the
Yeah.
company is, and how they're not, they want off. If they're talking about themselves, they're engaged. So,
Hmm.
when first meeting someone in person, on the phone, on Zoom, it really doesn't matter, is you want to ask questions about them. And they don't have to be clever questions, slick questions, asking a person how they got started in the so and so
Mhm.
business. Question people love to answer because nobody ever asked them. Whoever wants to know their
Yeah.
story?
I
Very
love
few
it.
people, right? Asking what they enjoy most about it. Then I have what I call my one key question that I ask, and this I think distinguishes you from everyone else, and that is if you're talking to someone in sales, you'd say, "How can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good potential client for you?" I
Hmm.
mean, this really connects right away. Now, if it's someone who's you're talking to a CEO or you're talking to an engineer, you're talking to somebody in accounts payable, that's not going to be, but you could still say, how can I know if someone I'm speaking with would be a good connection for you? Or how can I know if someone I'm speaking with is someone you'd like to meet? Again, it's totally focused on them. So what you're doing is you're communicating the value that you could potentially bring
Hmm.
to their life.
Oh, wow. Well, I feel like I need to get that book. I did not go, I haven't read that one yet. No, that sounds really good. I think creating that, I think in a world of AI and technology, people are going to become more and more less trusting of online social media posting, no matter how vulnerable we all get in our post. And the referral piece from real human beings is going to continue to be the gold standard. Maybe it'll become the platinum standard
Hmm. Well,
for this.
there was a great book written years ago, maybe 6, 7 years ago, by Jeff Colvin. He was the editor at large at Fortune magazine. And the name of the book was "Humans Are Underrated." And the premise of the book was
Oh,
that
that's correct. Yeah.
that it used to be, what can humans do that machines still can't do? That used to be the question. It's no longer an appropriate question because there's nothing at this point that literally
Mm-hmm.
that here. He said the question's different now. It's what can humans do that people will not accept from machines, that they'll only
Ooh,
accept from humans.
great
And
question.
that's where those people skills really, what some people call soft skills. I don't call them soft skills. I call them people skills. There's nothing soft about them as far as I'm concerned. But this is where team building, leadership, collaboration, tact, empathy, that's where these come into play. It's like the person who, who's relative, let's say, is in the hospital and is operated on, and heaven forbid the person
Hmm.
passes away during the operation. They do not want to learn about this from a machine or a printout.
Yeah, or
They
text.
want to hear it from a
Yeah.
doctor who is kind and empathetic and has feeling, toward it. And so it's the same. And so what Mr. Colvin said is those people who are able to develop those skills, they're the people who not only are always going to have a job, but they're going to be the highest paid ones because they're going to provide the most value to those
Yes.
organizations.
What a great message for people to be thinking about in their career. Uh, Sort of a tactical question. When you are going to refer someone, so say, hey, this is what a good client looks like for me. How do you make that introduction typically?
Yeah, so it's very important to make the introduction appropriately because you never want to put someone on the spot. So you'll get, let's say you sent a double email, okay, to the person. You say,
Yeah.
"Hey, Joe, this is Margaret. She's amazing and has a great product, and I thought that you would be a really good prospect for her." Well, Margaret, the one who, or Joe, whoever is the one who is the referee, the
Hmm.
one who's the potential customer, you've just put them on the spot
Yeah.
because they may not, first of all, they may not feel they need it or want it. They might have someone else. They may just not want to, whatever. You don't know. And this is where value comes into play. Just because we might like an introduction that way doesn't mean everyone else does. So what I would always do is go first to the person who I think would make the good customer and let them know that I've met someone who I think could really serve them, so forth and so on. Would you like
Okay.
this introduction?
You ask permission essentially
Right.
first.
Then
Yeah.
exactly. Then you make a nice edifying introduction of both of them.
By email typically, and you
Could be
copy them
email.
both.
Absolutely. Could be email, or she could say, "Oh, just have him call," or something like that.
Okay.
I'd be delighted to talk. So again, it depends how but yes, if you're doing it by email, you
Yeah.
would do it in such a way that you first get permission, and it's
Yep.
always from the person who is, and then you would make a nice edifying introduction. You make sure to let each of them know why, how you know each other,
Okay.
say something good about that person, and then, why you think they would be a good, and
Yeah.
so,
So good. And a great place for us to wrap up because it's such a practical tip. I think people mess that up
yeah.
all the time.
Mhm.
And and it's like also, Chris, would you say, I'll think about writing a phrase like, hey, I'll let you two take it from here. You don't need to copy
Right.
me in. Otherwise, the person may be confused about, well, should I copy everybody? And they often do. And then you're stuck in this awkward email chain. But I like adding so much context to where it goes smoothly.
Yeah, very
And
important.
you're leading by example
Oh,
in this
thank you.
situation.
Yep.
Bob,
So,
what's your parting thought for our listeners today, sir?
Well, I mean, I think when it comes to either leadership or sales or anything else, I remember what a wise old mentor said to me, and that is that if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as the target. Your target is serving others. Now,
Mm,
when you hit the target, he said, you'll get a reward, and that reward will come in the form of money, and you can do with that money whatever you choose, but never forget the money is simply the reward for hitting the target.
mm,
It's not the target itself. Your target is serving others. So I think when we can always keep that in mind as a foundational premise that our target is to bring value to the lives of others. And when we do that, as my great co-author John Mann says, money is simply an echo of value,
mm.
as is effective leadership.
Focus on the value. Thanks, Bob.
My pleasure, Ben. Thank you so much for having me.